And Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo has announced his resignation after the defeat of his Flemish Liberals and the Democrats Party in the European elections. Visibly emotional, Alexander De Croo announced in a speech to his supporters on Sunday that it was a particularly difficult evening for his party and he will resign as Prime Minister. And Mr. De Croo will now tender his resignation to King Philip, who has the power to reject it at his discretion. Let's talk to global affairs analyst Colin Zaweke for more on this development. Mr. Zaweke joins us live from Brussels in Belgium. Some form of resignation and realignment we witness in Europe. Let's dig into it, Mr. Zaweke. Lots of explanation as to why we're seeing the shift to the right. Some have sampled factors like the rise in cost of living, concerns about migration. There's the cost of green transition as well as the war in Ukraine, which, of course, nationalist and populist parties have capitalized on. What do you think is happening?
Thank you, Femi, for having me. We saw this coming, didn't we, Nifemi? It has been a while now that the drift to the right here in Europe and indeed in some other parts of the Western world has been ongoing. There have been a bit of pushback from the central parties, a bit to the left of the political divide. But obviously the issues that you have summed up, the war in Ukraine, the rising cost of living, immigration matters, have bit by bit been effectively deployed by the right-wing parties to be able to, make the kind of success that, we have seen actually take place across Europe in the, European parliamentary election. So, yes, this is a matter of the right-wing political parties being able to effectively use, the deplorable situations as far as finance is concerned, the economy, the cost of living, and also actually weaponizing immigration. And they have, by doing so, they have then been able to, convince the voters that they have a better alternative than the ruling parties.
Let's take a look at what you consider the potential impact of the move to the right. Some have talked about the fact that we could see breaks on plans for new climate and sustainability laws, the influence on social or economic legislation, and also the European Union's strong backing for financial and military aid for Ukraine could also be jeopardized. How much impact is this election expected to have on the other part of the world?
The truth of the matter, Nifemi, is that things are not going to be the same anymore. However, listening to some of the pundits actually predicting doom, I'm afraid to say that no, the doomsday scenario that is being painted is not going to happen. One of the reasons it's not going to happen is that these right-wing parties in different parts of Europe have actually not won sufficient majority for them to, govern all by themselves. They do have to go into coalition with, other either centrum left or centrum right, political groups to be able to form a government. And what that means is that, their rhetorics, their, hardline politics and policies are going to be diluted by these other partners with whom they are going to form, a coalition. That's number one. Number two, you also have to understand, Nifemi, that we are talking of an environment where the institutions are very, very strong. Both the justice institution, the social economic institutions, and all of that are things that are actually enshrined in the law. So you don't just get up from somewhere, any day and want to change all of those. Let's recall, Nifemi, that the current Prime Minister of Italy actually was one of those people who actually spelled doom, anti-immigration and so on and so forth. Today, she is one of the greatest supporters of Ukraine in terms of Europe actually doing more to, support Ukraine. And if I might even bring it closer home, her appointee, the EU ambassador to, Nigeria, Ambassador Samuela Isokpe, is one of the most progressive EU ambassadors I have known over the last period of time. So you see, when they paint these, grim pictures, those are meant for politics. I don't think that, as a matter of fact, they are going to play out, in the manner that they have said. But I want to refer back to my first sentence, and that is that things are not going to be the same anymore, but they are not going to be the doomsday scenario that some analysts have made it to look like.
It's already not the same politically. The Belgian Prime Minister has now resigned subject to King Philippe's response. Emmanuel Macron in France has also called for a parliamentary election, which some say is a risky gamble to try to re-establish his authority. What do you think about that?
You are absolutely right that he is taking a gamble. Let's not also forget that only very recently, he actually instituted a far-reaching, pension reform in which, to actually see it pass through, he had to, one way or the other, use, a loophole in the French constitution to bypass Parliament to be able to get the law passed. People have not forgotten that. Now, if you add that to, the current woes that are happening, then you can begin to immediately see how much risk that he has taken. But I think it is probably a calculated risk. A calculated risk in the sense that he is hoping to use the intervening period, and I believe we're talking of about 4, 5, 6 weeks, to be able to, convince the French people that danger is staring them in the face because of, the advent of the right wing taking over power and how much influence they have within the EU. So it is wait and see. For Alexander De Croo, in my very own Belgium, yes, he has shown, democratic tendencies by his resignation. It remains to be seen whether the king is going to accept it. But all the same, it symbolizes the fact that, yes, he got the message of the people. The people didn't vote him away, but he has gotten the message of the people, and that is his reaction to it. So it's a bit of wait and see.
Like you said, this election will shape the direction of the EU over the next 5 years thereabout on issues like climate change and migration and what have you. But if you are to project, how much impact do you think this new parliament would have on people inside Europe and also European Union institutions?
Beginning with those inside Europe, they are protected by law. They are also protected by the strong institutions that we have here. So nobody just comes in overnight and change things from the way they had been. So in the immediate future, I do not see them, performing a very strong magic. Now, in the wider Europe, let's not forget that Italy, for instance, has a prime minister that is on the hard right of the political spectrum. The French Marine Le Pen is also on the right of the far right, as a matter of fact, of the political spectrum. But there are many areas that they don't agree. Take, for instance, support for the war in Ukraine, while Italy supports it very strongly. The French Lady Le Pen is actually not supportive of that. So there isn't even unison within the right-wing political parties. And if you add that to the fact that they are not going to govern alone, and it looks likely that the current EU president is going to remain in office. She's going to find enough majority to form, a coalition, a government. You see that the impact will not be as far-reaching as some have made it look like. But Europe is facing very, very challenging times in the next 5 years.
Global Affairs analyst Collins Oweke, thank you for talking to us on the news this hour.